Hello, everybody. It's Donzer. If you don't know who I am, I'm a Pokemon card YouTuber who talks about Pokemon cards and stuff like that. If you are interested in the video, consider subscribing. But we are going to be doing a tier list on the Shining Revelry 1-star illustration rares, 2-star rainbow rares, and the immersive card. Cool. So now you know what's up. I'm going to be analyzing these artworks, and let's get into it. Firstly, we have the Meowscarada. Sorry these images are a little bit poor quality. Nothing I could really do about that. This first illustration here is by Dan Chow, a fantastic recent illustrator from the Pokemon TCG. Really love this card, actually. There's a couple things that I like about it. First of all, those clouds being so gloomy is really nice and eye-catching. The city, the color really resonates. It very much so, like, kind of, expands to the rest of the card, right? Like you have the light kind of piercing all around the card, and even into the clouds in the back here, which I think is pretty potent. We also have Meowscarada sitting on top of the bell tower, flicking around a flower. It has a very good pose, like it's very like mischievous, and it has a mischievous smile that Meowscarada is associated with. So that is very cool, and I think this card is just really good. I have nothing bad to say about it. So I'm gonna put it in B tier, just to start us off. Next we have the Buizel. Now this card is pretty fantastic. Chimerish Yukichi is the illustrator of this card, who has these really cool kind of like effects that they put on their cards, right? They're so like nicely detailed, so incredible. Like everything about this card just oozes personality, right? Like you have the fan, you have the substitute doll, you have the ladder, you have little pawns for the Pokemon, and also you have shovel, potted plants, and you have like this person's house, with the Buizel as their partner Pokemon, kind of like renovated their home to create a giant like puddle area, which is really cool. You could only assume or guess that this is like the house of a diver or something like that with his Pokemon, which is really cool. I think that adds to it a lot. I love it. I love it. There's just so much about the card that really like makes you like just look at it and just be like, this is a really cool like card that has so much stuff in it and kind of has like its own little story that it's telling as the Pokemon is, sitting next to the fan. Next we have the Tatsugiri by Koichi 8i. This card is also pretty cool. I don't think it's probably my favorite of the 1-star cards in the set. I think it's good. I think that Tatsugiri has a lot of personality, which is I guess all that really matters because it is a Tatsugiri 1-star. But I think that, Tatsugiri itself looks really good. But I just don't really have a lot to say about it, unfortunately. I do really like Koichi's artwork. Koichi 8i. I don't know how to say that. Koichi. I'm just going to say Koichi. I like Koichi's artwork, but I don't know if I would put this about the Meowscarada. Next, we have the Grafaiai by Teiziro. I think this card is fantastic, personally. I really like this card. Obviously, there's also the Grafaiai art rare from the Scarlet and Violet era, the actual physical TCG. But I think this card does a great job of, giving the Pokemon personality. You have like the walls covered in paint of different colors, and you have like a spotlight being drawn on the Pokemon, which looks really great. I just think it looks really good. I'm also going to put this card in A tier because I really like the environment and the vibe of the card. And a little kind of midway through video thing, if you haven't subscribed and if you like the channel, if you like me talking about Pokemon cards and stuff, specifically more related to like the artworks of the Pokemon TCG, then subscribe. I'm trying to get to 750 subscribers by let's say by the end of May. I don't know if that's going to be possible, but let's just throw it out there for fun. Next we have Golden Go by Jerky. I think Jerky's style has really evolved a lot in the Scarlet and Violet era, and I think their style is really great, honestly. I think for a Golden Go card, this one is actually pretty good, for a couple reasons, right? You have a couple like nice greens and reds in the foreground, so that's nice. But you also have the Wave, which is a very solid blue, and then you have like the little speckles of gold and yellow that emit from the Golden Go. I think that really breaks up the kind of monotony of the blue, right? I think that gold color really adds to what is otherwise a pretty simplistic like colorway, right? You have just pretty much blue, white, and you have some speckles of red and green, but the gold coins and like the shimmering gold and yellow really kind of like break up those spots. So I think it does look really good. And like I said, I think that Jerky's artwork is only getting better. So I'm gonna throw it in top B tier. Next we have the Wigglytuff. So this card obviously is kind of weird. It's by 5-band graphics, but unironically, I do think this is probably one of 5-band graphics' better cards, for just the reason alone that it's just kind of funny, right? I feel like a lot of the time people don't really care for 5-band graphics cards, which is fine, but I'd rather feel an emotion than not feel an emotion, right? I'd rather think a card is funny and interesting than a card being boring, right? I think most people would probably prefer that. But that is how I feel about this Wigglytuff card. I think it's really cool that it's just so strange, right? It's very, very odd. You know, the shading is very realistic almost. You know, the fur is really hyper detailed, which is interesting. You know, it's in like a blank white room, which is kind of interesting, and its stare is just scary. You know, when I first saw this card, I didn't even think it was like official, you know? I thought it was like fake, but in a good way, right? It's just really, really, really captivatingly interesting in a strange way. One where I don't think the artwork necessarily is fantastic. I would never say this card is like the most fantastic artwork I've ever seen in my life. But you know, it's at least extremely interesting. But I don't think it's better than the Tetsugiri. Maybe a little bit. Well, that's about it though. Next we have the Pikachu Rainbow Rare by Yu Iribi. I think this card is really good. I love the electricity effects. I think that they're done masterfully here. As you have green, yellow, blue, you know, some mixes of all of the above. And you also have Pikachu, which is like, you know, very energetic, very like boisterous, kind of with that like explosive energy that Pikachu can, you know, obviously produce as it is an electric type Pokemon. But just seeing that intensity, I guess, is just something that's really cool. I feel like we don't really see that with this Pokemon very often. It usually doesn't have like super crazy effects, but this one has great effects and great shading. So for that reason, I'll say the card is really good. Maybe not as good as the Buizel, but I still think it's really good. Next we got the Paldean Clodsire by Rend. Obviously, I think people are really warming up to Rend's artwork. I think people really like Rend's artwork for the most part. And I do too. I think this is probably one of their more interesting cards, as it has a lot more personality than some of their other cards do. Just because of the fact that it has, you know, baby Pokemon laying on another Pokemon. So I think that that's really cool. And you know, Clodsire looks really cute, really round. The lighting looks very good. It is a very hyper-realistic card, so if you're not really a fan of that style, I could understand you not really liking this card. But I like it, you know, I like the water effects, I like everything about it. So I think that inclines me to put it in the B tier. Maybe like one above the Golden Go. That's about it for that one. Now moving on to my favorite of the rainbow cards, which is going to be the Tinkaton by Kurumitsu. Kurumitsu is one of my favorite artists in the Pokemon TCG, and this card is honestly incredible. I love the stylized look. You know, I love how explosive Tinkaton smashing its hammer down is. It's treated with a lot of power and respect, as I think it should be, as it's a, you know, very powerful Pokemon with a giant powerful weapon, right? I think that, you know, the flowiness of Tinkaton's like hair tuft things are really cool. You know, you have like the star effects as well, and the explosive kind of like comic booky effects, to create a card that is probably my favorite card from the set. Now I am biased, but I do think it's a very good looking card. Next we have the Bibarel by USG-Men, who's the same illustrator that did that Bubble Mew card. Now I do think the Bubble Mew is obviously a little bit better than this card. I mean, it's not better per se, it's just different, right? I think this card is cute though. I think that it's interesting that all the Bibarels on the back have they actually have all the exact same face, which is mildly horrifying in a way. You have one chewing on a little branch here. But that simplicity does create a very interesting dynamic, right? Where all the Pokemon are just blankly staring into the camera in a very kind of concerning way. I like it. I don't think it's probably my favorite card from the set, but I do not hate it. So I'm going to put it at the top of C tier. And then finally we have the Giratina EX Immersive. I do think this card is nice. It's by Shinji Kanda, obviously, by that crazy style. And this is the second time Shinji Kanda has drawn Giratina. I do think Giratina does look a little bit like big in this card. I would have liked it if it was like zoomed out a little bit more. Just because it does take up like 90% of the card. Or not 90, but like, you know, a good chunk of the card. And it just looks a little bit chunky. I don't know if that's just me, but it looks kind of chunky, especially compared to the Giratina V alternate art that Shinji Kanda also did. Where that was a little bit more refined. I feel like it looked a little bit like the proportions kind of fit with Shinji Kanda's style a little bit more, because Shinji Kanda's style is like extremely detailed, a very like thin lines, so a very thick Pokemon like this kind of is interesting with Shinji Kanda's style. I would think that they would draw Giratina a little bit more lanky. But I think that this style still looks really good. Obviously, I think Shinji Kanda's artwork looks really good as well. But that's my, you know, kind of one thing as to why it's probably not my favorite card in the entire set. But I do think it's still a really good looking card. I just don't think it's probably one of my favorites. So I'm going to put it, at the top of B tier. I think that's totally fair. It's still a really good looking card, but I just have some others that I prefer a little bit more. And that is my tier list. A very short video, obviously, as there's only a handful of cards in the set with 11 total illustration rares and special art rares or whatever. Regardless, it's still a good, it's still a good amount for a video, right? A short little video that I hope will bring in some new people and also bring in some old people and, spread the word of the Dr. Collects YouTube channel in the form of a tier list, which I think everybody loves tier lists. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I also love tier lists. I love doing tier lists for like all the different sets that come out. Yeah, maybe, like for funsies, next set, what is the next set? The Gen 7 set? I'll do a tier list that encompasses all of these cards, that would be crazy. As a celebration for the Pokemon Pocket game having a half a year anniversary, that'd be really cool, having seeing all the 1-stars and the rainbows and immersives kind of neck to neck. So I think I want to do that, actually. So I only got like 3 more days, right? Anyways, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like, leave a comment telling me what your favorite card from Shining Revelry is, or just what your favorite card from Pokemon Pocket is. Who's your favorite artist? This is, oh gosh, it's all so sudden. I don't know. Just let me know. Like, what do you like? What's your favorite Pokemon? There you go. That's an easy one that anybody can answer. And like, what do you think? What do you think about, Pokemon Pocket? Is it good? Is it bad? What do you think about, like, is it, fairly monetized? Is it, whatever. But, anyways, hope you guys have a great day. I rambled on a little bit too much, but, what are you gonna do? See you later. Bye.